Welcome to the Breadwinner Podcast. This is the show for Sourdough Microbakery owners who are building a sustainable, successful, profitable business from their home. If you are already in business or if you're dreaming of starting one, this is the place for you. I'm your host, Caroline Bauer. I own a successful in-home sourdough bakery, and I am here to share everything I've learned that works and that doesn't, plus everything that I'm researching along the way so we can build thriving businesses together. Today, we're kicking off our inaugural episode by building a really firm foundation and talking about everything that you need to know to start your own bakery from home. Owning an in-home sourdough microbakery is so fulfilling and so rewarding, but it can also be really challenging, especially when you're getting started and trying to do all the research, wade through the droves of information that are available online, and figure out exactly what you actually need to know before you can sell your bread. So today we're going to walk through the key things that you need to find out before you can get started so you can avoid a lot of the mistakes and pitfalls that I see bakers make when they're just getting started. We'll cover everything from researching the laws and regulations in your area, setting up your kitchen, sourcing your ingredients, to building brand awareness in your area. All right, first things first, before we dive into the baking, we're going to talk about the legal side. We want to make sure that we are running a compliant business from the very get-go. Every state is different, so it's important to know what you can sell, what you can't sell, where you can sell it, and what applications or paperwork you might need to get working on before you can actually start selling. This is coming from the perspective of someone in the United States. So if you're in Canada or elsewhere, just make sure that you're doing the research in your area. The first thing to do when you're researching your local laws is to start on your local health department website. Search for terms like cottage food organization or cottage food business or in-home bakery business. That should get you started pretty solidly on what you need to do, what sort of licensure or certifications you need to obtain. Things that you'll be looking for are whether or not you need a food handlers or food safety course, whether you need to certify your kitchen or have it inspected or submit your menu or your ingredients to the state. You'll want to know what you can sell, what you can't sell, where you can sell it, where you can't sell it, how it needs to be labeled. Some states require it to be packaged before you're selling it. Other states have different regulations. So just make sure that you know what is required in your area. A really good resource as you're doing this research is Facebook. I've found that many states have a state-specific Facebook group for cottage food operations. So if you were to search, for example, Texas cottage food bakers or Texas cottage food businesses, you're likely to find a state-specific group that'll give you a lot of information and a really good place to ask your questions as you're getting started. In the free checklist down in the show notes, there are boxes that you can check off for each of the things that you'll need to research along the way. So make sure you grab that so you have a tangible list to go back to. When you start selling, it's very likely that you'll see other cottage bakers alongside you at markets or other places. And you may notice that they are not fully compliant with the regulations in your state. It is not your job to correct them. So my encouragement to you is just simply to stay in your lane. Just focus on being excellent in what you do, show up consistently, bring out that great product that you produce that no one else does just like you, and your customers will notice and keep coming back. Let's move on to step number 2 and talk about setting up your kitchen. Now that we know how to set up a compliant business, let's talk about how to set up a kitchen that works really well for you. You do not need a state-of-the-art, Instagram-worthy kitchen to sell excellent bread and run a thriving business. But you do need a well-organized space. So here are some essentials. I would encourage you to set aside a dedicated baking area. Now, this doesn't have to mean that you have an entire separate kitchen or entire workspace. This could be as simple as setting aside part of a cabinet where you can store all of your bakery baking supplies separate from household baking items. And that separation helps you and the other people in your household kind of view and legitimize your business a little bit more as its own separate entity rather than sort of intermingling with the household things. I've heard from a lot of bakers that space is the biggest barrier to growth in their business. I totally understand. Not everyone has the privilege of having a whole room or part of a room that they can take over as their own. But if you are really limited on space, just realistically keep in mind that running a bakery is a business that takes up a fair amount of space between the equipment, the bannetons, the baking supplies, the ingredients. Realistically, plan to be able to set aside a decent amount of space and more if you plan to grow and scale your business. If you are just working with a teeny tiny little space, you can get really creative. Just come at it with a realistic lens and understand that baking is a job that takes space. Let's touch on equipment. All right, there are a few, but not a lot of essential tools that you're going to need to get started. Number one would be an oven. Your residential oven is perfectly adequate as long as it can reliably maintain temperature. You might want to grab a little oven thermometer just to make sure that you know what temperature your oven is if it differs from what's showing on the dial. You're going to want proofing baskets. If you are on some of the Facebook groups or Instagram, you'll see people get really creative with cereal bowls or colanders from the dollar store. There are so many options, but you're going to need something to proof your bread in. I recommend one or two large bins to mix up dough. You're going to want a reliable digital scale, a probe thermometer to check the temperature of your bread, and ingredient bins would be helpful to keep your ingredients airtight and separate from your household ingredients. Don't worry about getting everything at once. Start small with what you have, make do with what you have, and then slowly reinvest what you earn into equipment. Talking about storing your ingredients, I recommend airtight containers. There are a ton of options at stores local to you as well as on Amazon. Look for food-safe plastic, or if you don't prefer plastic, look for glass or stainless steel storage solutions. When you're setting up a kitchen that functions really well for you, you'll want to make sure that you have your ingredients organized and stored in a way that makes sense and is efficient so that you're not digging through your pantry every time you need to go bake. I do recommend if you can maybe clear off a shelf on the pantry or clear out a shelf in a cabinet, but store your ingredients, your flour, your salt, your inclusions in airtight food-safe containers. Label them if you need to, put dates on them to make sure that you're keeping track of what you have, how long you've had it. And that way you can easily glance in your baking inventory and know what's available to bake with and what you need to replace so that you're not running to the grocery store. All right, we've talked about setting up a kitchen that works well for you. Let's talk about perfecting your recipe. So this is a really, really common thing that I see from bakers all the time. They've been baking a couple loaves at a time. They're getting excited. They're sharing on social media. People say they want some. And so they put a post out and they have a bunch of people say that they want a loaf. So they're committed for baking 6 or 8 loaves all at once when they've only ever baked 2. And then they realize that a batch of 6 loaves behaves differently than a batch of 2 loaves. And suddenly they find that their dough has overproofed dramatically, and bulk baking is a whole different ballgame. So here's my encouragement to you. Practice bulk baking. Practice it more than once before you commit to selling anything. Plan to gift these experiment loaves to neighbors, to friends, to coworkers, to generate some excitement and some buzz, but also before you're selling your product, make sure that you know how to reliably and consistently produce it in batches of more than just 2 at a time. As you're working to master your recipe, I recommend that you stay with one recipe and practice it over until you know the way that dough should feel and you know how your environment and weather factors and things like that are going to affect your dough, so that you can kind of accommodate for that as you're baking. If you practice ahead of time to ensure a consistent product, it's going to pay off. It'll save you a ton of headache once you're actually selling. Let's move into step number 4, which is sourcing your ingredients. So when you're setting your menu, one of the decisions you'll need to make is what type of ingredients you'll be using, what type of products you'll be offering. Bakers set themselves apart by offering fully organic or mostly organic products. Others prefer to keep their price points lower, and so they'll use mostly conventional, readily available ingredients. Whatever you choose is the right choice for you, but that's going to affect where you source your ingredients, what type of ingredients you're looking for, and what's important to you in your sourcing decisions. Some of the places you might look for ingredients are local suppliers. You might look for local flour mills, local grocers, even local farmers markets that might partner with you to provide ingredients. It could be a really cool partnership to set apart your product by telling your customers that your ingredients were sourced locally. On the flip side, if you're looking for bulk purchasing, you can save a lot of money by buying ingredients in a much larger quantity. Places to look for bulk purchasing would be retailers like Costco or Sam's Club in your area. Or you might look for restaurant supply stores. Just Google restaurant supply stores near me. You'll find like Restaurant Depot. Sometimes you'll be able to go in and just get a day pass so you don't have to pay for a membership. And then another option is online. Is specifically for restaurants and provides pretty much anything that you could want, a lot of it in bulk quantities, and a lot of it at really good prices. The only drawback to Webster is that their shipping costs are insane. One kind of workaround here is to sign up for their Pro membership, which is $99 a month. But the first 30 days, you'll get a free trial. So if you go in with a list and know exactly what you're planning to get, place your big order within those 30 days and then cancel that membership before you get charged for the $99 fee. Sourcing your ingredients is something that will kind of come with time, but it is something that you want to think about as you're getting started, with what is important to you and what kind of ingredients you're going to be looking for, whether you prioritize organic or lower price points or what's readily available to you. Now we're going to move a little bit out of the kitchen and talk briefly about building your brand. We will go much deeper in this topic in future episodes, but for now, we'll just cover it with a very brief, high-level view. So your brand is what makes you unique. What do people think of when they think about your company? Or what makes them think of you? Have you ever had a friend send you something and be like, this made me think of you? That's kind of you are your own brand a little bit. But think about that in terms of your company. What do people see and associate with you? Whether that's using locally sourced ingredients, all organic products, maybe you freshly mill some of your flour. Maybe you use really specific, unique ingredients from a specific area or with a unique heritage, or you draw in ingredients that are not commonly utilized in baked goods, and so they might set you apart. Part of your brand is your visual identity, and that is what people see and associate with your brand. A lot of times this includes a color scheme, so very specific colors, and you would carry these through in your packaging and your displays and your social media. So it's all cohesive. So people are getting a very streamlined and clear message from you when you're conveying who you are without any words at all. Part of your brand is telling your story. How did you get started? Why do you love sourdough? Why is it important to you? What is it about building a business that gets you excited? Why do you do it? Do you have a specific family reason or a lifestyle reason? Share what makes you you. There is no one else. There are a lot of sourdough bakers. There are a lot of people selling their sourdough. In my area, a new sourdough business pops up every week or two. I see them post on Facebook, and everyone has their own unique reason for selling sourdough. So don't worry about all the others popping up. Just stay true to who you are, tell your unique story, and you will be the one who has the staying power in your area. Part of telling that story is the platforms that you use to share, whether that's a website or social media or just sharing with word of mouth. That leads us into talking about marketing and selling your bread. Again, we will go so much deeper into this topic in future episodes. But right now, just to get the wheels turning, talk a little bit about marketing here. So one of the most powerful ways to market in our current era is social media. This can be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the Nextdoor app. These can all be used both to tell your story and then also to tell what's going on in your business, whether you have a new menu flavor, your orders are open for the week, you're taking a break. This is all important for sharing your message with the people who are interested in what you have to offer. Other ways to market your products include porch pickup, local markets, popping up at local businesses, collaborating with others to share your products in creative ways, participating in farmers markets. There are a lot of ways to get your product out. Going back to where we began in the very beginning, make sure that you know where you can sell in your area. For example, in my area, we cannot sell wholesale. We have to sell directly to the end user. So that means that I have to sell directly to the customer who's going to be eating the bread rather than going through like a third party, placing my product in a coffee shop and then they sell it. But there are areas that allow that. And then part of marketing is setting up an online way to order from you. Most bakers utilize a platform, whether that's a free Google Sheets or something like the Simply Bread app or Hot Plate or Bakesy. There are several good options that give your customers a place to order from you. Another part of marketing is keeping people coming back to you, and this can be through loyalty programs such as referral discounts or like a buy 10, get one free. We will talk more about this in future episodes as well. A lot of creative ideas for keeping your customers coming back. But again, that ties into the marketing overview that we're touching on right now. The last step in building the foundation of a profitable, thriving, sustainable business is managing your own time and energy. If you start out the gate with a bang, you're staying up all night to bake for orders, you are going to burn out so fast. That is not the way to build a business that lasts. And that is the opposite of what we are about here at the Breadwinner Podcast. One of the things that is so important as you're beginning your bakery is to set up a schedule, plan out your bake days, your market days, and your rest days. So some helpful tools when you're doing this are batching your tasks. So group like tasks together. That might mean making a really big batch of cookie dough and then freezing it so that you have it ready for the next week or two, rather than baking one batch here and one batch there. It also might mean printing a lot of labels ahead of time so that you have them ready when you need them rather than scrambling to print them when your orders are going out the door. I like to utilize time blocking in my schedule. That might look like on a prep day, I block out a block of time for mixing my dough, a block of time for breakfast, a block of time for reading with my kids, a block of time for shaping my dough so that I know I have everything fit into the day. I schedule it around my non-negotiables. Sleep and my meals are the first thing in my calendar. If you look at my calendar, every day has those already scheduled, and then everything else fits around those. It is incredibly important to prioritize your rest, your nutrition, and taking care of yourself if you are hoping to build a business that lasts. All right, this was just scratching the surface of everything that we're going to talk about in the Breadwinner Podcast. To quickly summarize what we talked about 7 steps to building a business that lasts, starting with making sure that you're compliant with the regulations and laws in your area, moving into setting up a kitchen that works efficiently for you, talked about perfecting your recipe and making sure that you can consistently produce results that are the same every time and you're not thrown by factors like increasing the volume of your recipe or a super humid day. We talked about sourcing your ingredients and choosing what's important to you when you're doing that, building your brand, marketing and selling your products. And then finally, we talked about managing your time and your energy. I hope this was helpful to you as you are dreaming of starting your own business. I would love to hear more about your own journey and cheer you on. Come connect with me on Instagram. I'm Caroline Bauer, BOWER_sourdough. I share a lot on there. I'm very active. I'm the only person behind that account. So if you message me, you're messaging me. I would love to hear what you're doing, what's working for you. If this show was helpful, if you're excited about future episodes, take a screenshot of it, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me. I'll repost it and we can all connect and get excited together. All right, that wraps up episode number 1 of the Breadwinner podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss future episodes. They will be dropping every Monday and every Thursday. And I am so excited to be on this journey with you.